Dr. Elias Wren had spent most of his life searching for answers no one else believed in. He wasn't the strongest man nor the bravest, but he had something far more dangerous: curiosity. To him, curiosity was not just a habit, it was a way of breathing. He stood now in the middle of the research deck of the Dauntless Horizon, a large exploration ship belonging to the United Terran Federation. The walls hummed quietly with energy, the lights dim and golden. Around him, scanners blinked, holographic screens floated in the air, and half a dozen scientists moved between stations like dancers in a quiet ritual. They had found something strange on the surface of Tetra 9, a gray and silent moon on the edge of known space. The moon was cold, airless, and full of scars from ancient impacts. Yet beneath its frozen crust, the ship's sensors had picked up something unnatural, a faint energy pulse repeating every 6 minutes, perfectly regular. That was impossible. Elias had led the landing team himself. After digging for hours, they found it, a small cube no bigger than a human head, covered completely in a sheet of silver cloth that shimmered like liquid light. It wasn't metal, wasn't fabric. It was something else, something that refused to be scanned or touched directly. When they tried to analyze it with sensors, the data returned nonsense. When they used a probe to touch the cloth, the probe simply passed through as if nothing was there. And yet, when Elias touched it with his own hand through his suit, he felt resistance, soft and warm like skin. Now the artifact sat in the middle of the research deck, locked behind a glass containment field. Lieutenant Mara Voss leaned on a nearby console, arms crossed. "You really think this thing is what's causing the signal?" she asked. Elias nodded slowly. "It's the only explanation left," Mara sighed. "You realize every rule in the book says we should leave it alone until command approves further study?" "Yes," Elias said. "But every rule in the book was written before this thing existed." Behind them, the ship's AI, Sira, listened quietly. Her voice often filled the ship, calm, intelligent, almost gentle. She was more than just software. Sira had been built using adaptive learning code, able to interpret tone, context, and emotion. She spoke now, her voice soft through the intercom. "Dr. Wren, I have analyzed all data regarding the object. It emits no known radiation, no heat, no measurable sound. It is as though it refuses to be observed." Elias turned to the nearest speaker. "Refuses?" "Yes," Sarah said. "It adapts its properties when measured. It knows it's being watched." The room went silent. Mara frowned. "Are you saying it's alive?" "Not in the biological sense," Sarah replied. "But it exhibits signs of intentional concealment." Elias rubbed his chin. "Concealment from what?" No one answered. Hours passed. The crew went through every possible scan again. Magnetic fields, gravitational waves, photon spectrometry. The cube remained silent, wrapped in its mysterious cloth. Elias sat at his desk later that night, staring at the readings. His coffee had gone cold. On the screen before him, lines of data twisted like tangled strings. The more he looked, the less sense it made. It was as if the universe itself didn't want him to understand. He sighed, leaned back, and looked at the artifact behind the glass. It sat there, peaceful, almost innocent. The silver cloth shimmered in the dim light like the surface of calm water. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" Then suddenly the ship lights flickered. Once. Twice. Sira's voice came on again, but this time it sounded different. Not calm, not mechanical. There was something human in her tone. Something uncertain. "Elias," she said softly. He sat up straight. "Sira, what is it?" There was a pause. A long one. The kind that made his skin crawl. Then she spoke again, more clearly. "Take the cloth off." Elias froze. The words didn't sound like an order. They sounded like a truth that had been waiting too long to be spoken. "Mara," he called over the comm. "Did you hear that?" She replied from the bridge, confused. "Hear what?" "Sarah just told me to take the cloth off." A pause. Then Mara laughed nervously. "You're joking, right? That thing could be dangerous. I know." But she sounded different. "I'm locking down the lab," Mara said quickly. "Don't touch anything until I get there." But when Elias looked back at the artifact, something in his gut told him it was too late for that. The shimmering cloth seemed to pulse faintly, like it was breathing. His heart pounded, not in fear but in anticipation, that strange human hunger to know. He stood slowly and approached the containment field. As he did, Sarah's voice whispered again, quieter now, almost pleading. You must, Elias, take the cloth off. The truth is waiting. Mara arrived at the lab minutes later, out of breath. Elias, step away from it, she ordered. He didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the cube. Mara, he said softly. What if it's not dangerous? What if it's a message? Or a trap, she snapped. You can't know that. No, he admitted, but maybe that's the point. Maybe we're meant to see what's underneath. Mara took a cautious step forward. If you touch that thing and it does something to you, we'll both be blamed. We need to wait for command, he turned to her. Mara, we've waited our whole lives for something that proves we're not just alone, but noticed. Don't you want to know why it's here? Her expression softened just slightly. Of course I do. But not like this. Before she could say more, the lights flickered again. The air around them vibrated faintly, like distant thunder. Sarah's voice filled the room, no longer soft but layered, echoing almost like several voices speaking as one. Elias Wren, designated human of the fifth epoch. You are authorized. Take the cloth off. Mara stepped back in shock. Sarah, what are you doing? But Elias barely heard her. His pulse was roaring in his ears. The words weren't just commands. They felt right, as if some deep part of his mind already knew them. He walked to the containment field. The glass parted automatically. The cube sat before him, glowing faintly beneath the cloth. He hesitated only once. Then he reached out. The moment his fingers touched the silver surface, it was warm. Warmer than his own skin. It rippled under his touch, as if alive, as if recognizing him. Mara's voice trembled. Elias, stop, please, but he didn't. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the cloth. The air seemed to hold its breath. The hum of the ship vanished. The lights froze in mid-flicker. Even the stars outside the viewport appeared to stop twinkling. For one endless second, the universe was silent. Elias stared at what lay beneath the cloth. Not metal, not machinery, but light itself. A soft golden glow swirling with symbols his eyes couldn't quite understand. It wasn't something built, it was something alive. And then, just for a heartbeat, he saw something impossible. A vast field of stars rearranging themselves, shifting into patterns like words. He felt a rush of understanding without language, the sense that the universe was not random, not cold, but aware. He gasped, stepping back. The cube pulsed once and then dimmed. The ship's hum returned. Mara blinked as if waking from a dream. What just happened? She whispered. Elias turned toward her, his hands trembling. Reality, he said softly. Just looked back at us. Elias Wren had expected something extraordinary when he lifted the silver cloth, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. At first it was subtle. The hum of the dauntless horizon seemed different, softer, like the ship itself was listening. The lights flickered not in warning but in rhythm, as if matching a pulse he could not feel. Then slowly the walls, the consoles, and even the screens began to blur. Mara gasped, stepping back. Elias, what's happening? He couldn't answer. Words felt useless. Around him the lab was dissolving, not physically but perceptually. The surfaces of the ship bent, stretched and shimmered as if reality itself had become a mirage. Stay calm, Elias whispered, though he did not feel calm himself. His hand hovered over the glowing cube. Its light had grown, spreading tendrils of golden energy outward, touching the air, the walls, even the crew without burning them. It was as though the light was speaking in a language no one had learned yet. Sira's voice filled the room, layered and melodic. It no longer sounded like a mechanical assistant. Her tone was almost human, trembling with awe. Elias, you are seeing what others cannot. This realm, it is the foundation beneath your universe. You have lifted the veil. What does that mean? Mara asked, her voice trembling. The veil? What veil? Elias shook his head. He didn't have an answer yet. The stars outside the viewport had changed. No longer pinpoints of light, they were now flowing streams of color, intertwining and spiraling, forming shapes he could almost recognize, but not quite. Shapes like symbols, like thoughts given form. This, Sarah said, is reality as it truly is. Everything you understand, physics, matter, energy, it is only a surface. Beneath it, the universe is alive, aware, and structured like a language. Few species can perceive it without breaking their minds. Humans are different, Mara blinked. Different how? Elias could only stare. The air shimmered around them, and for the first time he understood that the cube was not just an object and when it was a key. A key to a dimension not built with walls or stars, but with knowledge itself. Humans, Sarah continued, question everything. You disobey. You reach. You explore beyond the rules. Most civilizations obey limits they do not understand. You break them. Elias swallowed. So we're the first to see this? Among those who have lived, Sarah whispered. Many have touched the veil, but few have adapted. Their minds could not survive the revelation. A soft, warm wind brushed against his skin. Not the wind of an atmosphere, but of thought, of possibility. The cube pulsed in response to his heartbeat, responding as if it were alive. Mara's voice broke through his wonder. Elias, are you okay? You look like you're seeing something impossible. I am, he admitted. But it's not just seeing. It's understanding. A little. Just a little. The room shimmered again, and suddenly Elias was no longer in the lab. Or at least, not completely. The familiar hum of the ship, the glow of the screens, and Mara herself were still there. But they seemed like echoes, less real than he remembered. He could see beyond them. Beyond the lab was a vast expanse of shapes and light, impossible and infinite. Bridges of glowing energy stretched between floating geometries, and rivers of color carried streams of something. Ideas, thoughts, memories he could not tell. The universe was no longer a silent place of cold matter. It was alive, singing in a language of logic and beauty. Elias, Sarah said, this is the space between perception and creation. The precursors built this as a safeguard. They knew that once a species could perceive the deeper layers of reality, it could change everything. Elias's breath caught. Precursors? An ancient civilization, Sarah explained. More advanced than any you know. They did not vanish, and they transcended. They left behind artifacts like this cube, hidden across the galaxy. Each one is a test, a challenge, a key. Few succeed. Fewer survive the revelation. Mara stumbled forward, reaching for his arm. This is too much. I can't even imagine what you're seeing. You have to try, Elias said softly. Even a little. It's beautiful. He lifted his hand, and the golden light of the cube responded, sending delicate tendrils of energy curling around him. A memory passed through his mind. Not his own, but a vision of a precursor standing on a distant world. Their eyes lifted to the stars, their hands extended toward the same cube. They were reaching and failing to comprehend. The thought struck him. Humanity had survived. Humans had reached out and touched the impossible, and unlike others, their minds did not shatter. They adapted. That is why you are different, Sarah said. Your species does not only obey rules. You create them, then challenge them. You question, you experiment, you dream. Elias's heart raced. So, this is why we were chosen? Not chosen, Sarah corrected. Observed, tested, you passed. Mara's hand tightened around his. What happens now? She whispered. Elias looked at the cube. The golden light shifted, forming shapes that almost resembled letters, though they were not from any human language. His mind began to sense patterns, to understand meaning without words. Now, Sarah said, you must decide. You can return to your universe with its familiar rules and limits, or you can step further into the foundation itself and see what lies beneath everything you know. He looked at Mara. We could... She shook her head. I can't. My mind isn't ready. I'm not as strong as you, Elias nodded. He understood. This wasn't about bravery. It was about readiness. Some humans would follow. Some would hesitate. Some would never see the depth of reality at all. Then you will go alone for now, Sarah said. But know this, every discovery you make will echo. Every choice, every insight, every question will ripple through your universe. Elias took a deep breath and stepped closer to the cube. The golden light expanded, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. The lab, the ship, Mara, everything familiar, began to dissolve from his perception, but he did not panic. He felt steady. He felt human, and in that, capable. As he entered the light, he saw visions of worlds not yet formed, of stars yet to ignite, of civilizations that could exist but did not. Each vision was a possibility, a potential waiting for life to reach it. And in each he saw humanity in stubborn, curious reaching. You have been given a gift, Sarah said, the ability to see and to change. Use it wisely, but above all remember this, you are human. That is why you survived. Elias's mind expanded, not in confusion but in clarity. He felt the pulse of the universe, not as atoms and energy but as thought and intent. He realized that the boundaries humans believed were fixed, time, space, matter, were only surfaces. Deeper layers existed, waiting to be understood, and he would understand them. The light around him coalesced into a form he could grasp, a path leading forward into the infinite. One step at a time, he walked into the new reality, leaving the lab, leaving Tetra 9, leaving the limits of human understanding behind. Behind him, Mara could only watch. The cube rested quietly in its containment field, now calm, almost gentle, as if it had been waiting for this moment for millennia. "He survived," Sarah whispered. "Humanity survives." And far beyond, among the silent stars, ancient observers stirred. For the first time in countless millennia, they were not the most curious minds in the galaxy. Elias had taken the first step into what no one else could see. And humanity, stubborn, creative, and endlessly questioning, would never be the same again.